1, 38 Jerry Cook passes Max Barrier to take over the lead for the first time.
People ask me, what would you do if you didn't race? I said, I don't know. That's all I've ever done.
He will become a 4-time Whelen Modified Tour champion, and Justin Bonsignore wins the title in 2024.
That I was born into it, and I found it to be extremely competitive at an early age. I loved it. I loved the adrenaline that came from it. I loved the competition. Even at an early age, I met a lot of friends that are still friends today. I've met my wife in racing, my now future, and with my wife, and meeting through racing, and hopefully our kids wanting to race. It's all we know, like Jerry said. So I don't do it for a living, but it is my life. There's nothing else I want to do, and I hope I could still do it for many years to come if I'm competitive.
It went all the way back to when I was probably 8, 9 years old. In Lockport, New York was where I was born and raised. And there was a service station down the road, about not even a half a mile. And 2 brothers ran the service station. One of them drove stock cars. His name was Cam Gallardi. When I was 13, I had my first stock car. And Cam was the first guy that drove it. And then I had a number of drivers that drove for me after that, till I got to be, I think, almost 18 or whatever. And I decided, well, if I was going to fix them, I was going to drive them, because the driver said I'd take it out and warm it up. Said, you shouldn't run it so hard. Okay. Think I know how this goes.
My dad and his 2 brothers were heavily involved in go-karting in the 80s. I was born in '88 and just born into it. My cousin Kyle and I were about the same age, and that's all we knew. We started racing when we were 8 years old, and as we got a little older, we progressed into traveling all over the East Coast, mostly with WK national go-karting events.
What kind of a commitment does it take to be a champion?
Back then, every race you ran counted. There was probably, 65, 70 races a year that counted. Plus, we ran anything else that paid money. We ran over 90 races a year for quite a few years, 5 days a week steady. One time I ran 8 races in 6 days. In 1982, I'd won 6 championships by that time. Back then, there was no tour. There was 6 NASCAR National Modified Championships. And then I was getting to the point where that's all I'd done. I'd always been on good friends with Bill France and Jimmy, and it's still Jimmy is today, And I wound up going to work for NASCAR. The tracks were starting to drop them because it was too expensive to run them weekly. And I remember I went to Bill France and told him I'd like to start a modified tour while there's still cars and teams, available. He looked at me and let me do it, and backed it, got a sponsor for it at the time, and whatever it took. But we started that tour in '85 and ran everywhere and all over the place. But the best thing about it was that a lot of the racers, they were all friends of mine. We'd all race together, which made trying to run it and do stuff, because they could tell me something and I'd know what they were talking about, And it just kept going on like that. In the first year we ran 28 races. I was shooting for 30. But we ran everywhere, and believe me, some of the places we went, we said, we ain't never coming back here, But there's some of them that were running back then that are still there now.
You're a guy that knows how to go out and win championships.
We like to do a lot of racing, so that's how we end up in the point thing at the end. I would say that, well, we had a good teacher when we got started. We had to figure out how to beat Jerry Cook.
Are those stories of you and Richie with the fake trailers, is that true? Where you guys would fake each other out and go a different direction where you actually were going to go race to try and make him not show up at that event?
Yeah, they sure are, and then some. I've told people that too. All them stories you heard, yep, they're all true.
Just the tip of the iceberg, I'm sure. What really?
There was one night when Fonda was running a race that wasn't that far from Rome, and my wife went to Fonda, but I'd got on an airplane before and flew to Hickory, North Carolina. And Richie was down there, and Richie asked her where I was, and she looked at her watch. Well, he's probably qualifying right now in Hickory. I mean, we'd leave town going west, make a big circle around and go east or north or somewhere. And yes, We were just trying to fake each other out. Yeah. We were both after the same thing.
We've had some, intense rivalries over the year between Doug Kobe and now Ron Silk, and to be able to beat those guys on certain years and outrun them is really special, because those guys are really good at what they do, and they have really good teams behind them. And when you could beat those guys, it's definitely rewarding, and you feel good about what you accomplished. So with your rivalry with Richie, was it friendly, or was there times where you guys didn't talk? Because I've gone through both. I mean, right now Ron and I haven't talked since September. We might talk in February again, but I was just curious if it was more on track, or did it carry it off track too, where you could not really separate the thing?
Well, with me and Richie Evans, my shop was at my house outside of town. His was in town. So we got the name of the crosstown rivals. And there was the biggest thing going on in Rome, New York. I mean, after a weekend, they'd be on the phone. Where'd you finish, here, there, whatever, So it was pretty big. And we had times when we got along great, and other times we didn't even talk to each other,
Yeah, Silk put it best. We get along well until we don't.
Yeah. And then it always come back. Because, in racing, the worst thing you can do is hold something like that forever and ever, because it'll eat you out. Yeah. It'll ruin you, really.
You can't focus on it.
You can't, you gotta. There's a point where you have to let it go and move on, Of course, when I started running the tour, that was in '85. Richie won the title that year. Sad to say, though, he lost his life at Martinsville and didn't even run the last race. That's how many points ahead he was. So that was probably the biggest downside that I had to go through, on top of dealing with that at the racetrack. And then I had to go home and deal with it. I've told the guys, I says, I hope you never have to endure any of that.
The checkered flag is out. The win to Richie Evans.
When people talk about modified stock car racers, when they talk about stock car racers, they talk about Richie Evans.
I think everybody in this day and age still thinks of, you guys as the ultimate badasses of modified racing.
Mike Stefanik scores his 74th Modified Tour win.
Trevor Catalano, the teenager, is going to pick up his first career Whelen Modified Tour victory. When he crosses the line, he'll have 45 career victories, take second place on the all-time win list. He will become a four-time Whelen Modified Tour champion, and Justin Bonsignore wins the title in 2024.
People are going to come and go. And there's always new people coming in. Unfortunately, with this tour, there's a lot of younger guys that are coming in. And then somebody like Justin here has got a chance at another tier of racing. And others, me and Richie were happy where we were and doing very well where we were. And that's where we decided to stay, But we were doing well where we were, and I didn't want to just had a wife and 2 kids and just throw all that away and try and start over again. Like I said, everybody's got their own reasons for doing stuff. But the thing with the modifieds that was always the first on my list.